Hey, my name is Benjamin.
Hi, my name's Ariya.
Tse-Ming, Brian.
And I'm Jonathan, and we're going to go ahead and talk about the crew resource management of the Tenerife airport disaster. So, going along into the table of contents, we're going to go ahead and talk about the accident itself, the two different aircrafts that are involved, along with some radio communication that happened just right before the accident. And after that, we're going to follow it by some suggestions that we have for CRM for the accident. So about the accident, quick summary is that it happened on March 27, 1977. It happened at the Los Rodeos Airport on the Spanish islands of Tenerife. The airport is now known as Tenerife North Airport. Two Boeing 747s were involved from the KLM flight 4805 and the Pan Am flight 1736. Basically, what happened with the accident was a runway collision to which 583 people died, 61 people survived, which is from the Pan Am flight. And this accident sparked the creation of the CRM, which we'll go on and talk about later. But going along to the next slide, continue on the next slide. So both flights were scheduled to the Gran Canaria Airport. This was a top tourist destination on the Canary Islands. Both flights eventually had to divert to the Tenerife due to a bomb threat. The first bomb blew up part of the terminal, and because there was a threat of a second bomb over the phone was about to happen, it caused the airport to shut down. So that is why these two aircrafts had to divert to the Tenerife Islands. So once their destination airport reopened, weather and regulations played a role with the flights wanting to depart Tenerife as soon as possible. With the weather deteriorating, the flight crew lost sight of one another. And with KLM flight 4805, it accelerated down the runway before striking the Pan Am flight, who was still on the runway.
Okay, so as seen in the picture, the airport diagram, it's not really a big airport. It's relatively small with a single runway. It's usually for smaller jets, but because of the situation just mentioned just now, the bigger jets has to divert to this airport. This airport, they have relatively restricted amount of resources. We don't have radar, no runway visibility measuring system, no taxiway markings, and center line lights were not working at that day. And it's a control tower, but like I said, it's a pretty small airport, so the staff were pretty short. And there were some troubles with communication because of English ability of the controllers. So the flight crews had trouble like understanding each other at the day. And also the weather at the day wasn't really good. There were clouds coming in at low. The airport visibility was just really bad. Okay, and also there were no radars. Yep. Okay, starting off with KLM flight 4805. Just a brief introduction. The captain was Jacob Lewis. He's a face of the airline, quite a big guy, but he hasn't flown for a while because he didn't had a regular line flight in 12 weeks. First officer, class Nurse. He just got upgraded to 747, so he doesn't really have lots of experience in 747. And using the airport diagram just now, so KLM, they were the first flight to arrive the airport, and then they park at the really end. So if you use that airport diagram, they're literally stuck in the very front. Nobody could pass before they leave. The crews, they had a lot of pressure because according to the Netherlands laws, they have like restricted flight duty times limit. So they almost exceeded that, so they were trying to get that flight going on to prevent that. And prior to takeoffs, so like I said, the weather was really bad today. So the clouds were in the on the runway, really low. They could barely see anything, and they got an ATC clearance for lining up, but they did not get a takeoff clearance. However, because they were trying to hurry it, with that external pressure going on, they started their roll without a takeoff clearance. Okay, on the second flight, Pan Am Flight 1736, just a brief introduction to the crews. Captain Victor Grubbs has fairly amount of hours, 564 hours on 747, relatively experienced. First officer, same thing. He has actually more hours on 747 than the captain actually. They also had flight engineers, George Warnes, and 13 flight attendant, and those are just some hours they have. So they were the one that were ready, because everyone else on was it the KLM? There are still passengers that are not on board, so they are not ready to depart. But Pan Am was the first one to be ready. However, they couldn't depart first because, as I said, the KLM was blocked on the very front. Nobody could pass them, so they had to wait for the KLM to be ready. So Pan Am Air flight, so they were instructed to taxi along the runway and vacate at third exit. But however, they did not exit on the third because they were required 148 turns to the main taxiway. It was a really narrow taxiway, so they had trouble turning, especially with the performance of 747 in consideration. It was not possible. So instead, they continued taxiing down to the fourth exit, and then they couldn't see KLM flight again because of the poor visibility.
Okay, so we brought some radio communication from the KLM flight and the Pan Am and also the tower. So it goes like the KLM first officer saying, "Wait a minute, we don't have the ATC clearance to take off." And the captain goes, "Oh, I know that, so go ahead and ask." So the KLM first officer asks the ATC for the clearance. So the tower does give them the clearance to take off. And on the second slide, they say Roger, then we're clear to blah blah blah. They start to put the throttle up. The captain says check thrust, and we're going check thrust, and they start accelerating. And then suddenly the tower says, "Okay, stand by for takeoff. I'll call you." But the KLM crew cannot hear the tower because of the radio heterodyne. And this is the radio between the Pan Am captain and the first officer and the ATC. So the Pan Am says, "We're still taxiing down the runway, the Clipper 1736. And still the KLM flight cannot hear because of the radio interference." The tower says, "Report the runway clear." So Pan Am says, "Roger." And then after this is not the radio communication between the aircraft and the tower. It's all in the aircraft. So in the Pan Am aircraft, the captain says, let's get out of here." And then they assume that KLM flight is in a hurry because they've been holding in this airport for 30 minutes and they're in a rush. So they decide to get out of the runway as soon as possible. But like Tse-Ming said, they couldn't make third exit, so they're going on their fourth. And they start talking in, I'm guessing, German. And the KLM flight sees Pan Am captain sees the KLM's landing lights approximately 700 meters down. And then, yeah, they start to see each other. The KLM flights says V1 and starts rotation and tries to get off the runway, but they couldn't make it. So, yeah, that's the last recording of the communication, which is the collision. And yeah, it's unfortunate. So yeah, we're going to talk about the CRM, crew resource management. What I learned about CRM at UND during my flight is that it's about the pilots using all available information and resources available to them to make the best decision. But yeah, it's created because of the Tenerife airport disaster, and it helps to improve aviation safety in the cockpit, like interpersonal communication, leadership, decision-making, judgment, situational awareness, threat and error management, things like that.
So now I'm going to talk a little bit about CRM and how it should play a role in the accident and what both planes could have done better. It's obvious that the proper usage of CRM was lacking from both sides, which resulted in the 583 deaths, which could have been avoided by implementing a couple of things, such as avoiding non-standard terminology, a more distinctive pilot monitoring roles, and also just heightened situational awareness whenever you're at like an unfamiliar airport, a smaller airport, when the weather isn't as good, making sure that there's no traffic on the runway. Kind of going in and talking about CRM for the KLM flight. I read a couple articles stating that the captain was quite senior, and then people were wondering if the first officer was not speaking up out of like respect for his senior, but external pressures were at play there as well. You know, just having to divert to another airport and people probably wanting to get out of there and reach their final destination. And focusing on CRM foundations, such as proper leadership, situational and self-awareness, proper communication, and just recognizing hazardous decision-making in pilot flying. And then talking about CRM for the Pan Am flight, they obviously missed their third exit. So just kind of reviewing the airport diagram would have helped with that. And just overall situational awareness of where you are in relation to the airport, in relation to other traffic, communication with ATC, and just overall aeronautical decision making could have helped avoided this entire accident. And then I think that's pretty much it. But to wrap everything up, I think that in this class we looked at so many different scenarios of CRM and why it's important and how we incorporate it into our training. And it's really something that we're going to use for the rest of our careers. And I think that we all thought that this accident was a perfect example and a great way to learn and better our understanding of situational awareness and all aspects of CRM.